Hey, World Warriors! Thank you for joining me and welcome to Warrior's Dream, a comprehensive retrospective on the history of fighting games, year by year, game by game. I'm your host, A CrowMn, playing arcade mode solo on this inaugural introductory episode 0 as we tatsu our way through a timeline of legends and sprite clones. The point of this episode 0 here is to not only introduce the concept and format of Warrior's Dream, but hopefully to brainstorm new ideas for the web show and gain some sort of feedback from you guys on specifically what you want to see and get out of it to make it as awesome as possible once we set off on our timeline adventure. This is an idea I've had brewing in my head for roughly a year, and only now do I feel like I'm skilled and confident enough to make it happen. So, with that said, let's start with, well, just what the hell is Warrior's Dream? A comprehensive retrospective on the history of fighting games, year by year, game by game. Warrior's Dream will be chronologically taking a look at fighting games in a timeline format, each episode covering a single game. Episode 1 of the web series will kick off starting in 1991 with the release of Street Fighter II. This isn't to say that fighting games didn't exist prior to 1991, or aren't worth looking at, but to put it bluntly, this is the beginning of the most interesting period in fighting game history to me, and a great place to start. I don't doubt that once we've dived deep enough into this timeline that we'll eventually go back and cover some pre-91 content leading up to the release of Street Fighter II. That said though, we are going to do our best to cover as many of these games as possible, as accurately as possible. This will largely depend on what games we have available to us, and what kind of footage we're capable of capturing. The other problem I see is this timeline might not be 100% accurate, only because the release dates of a lot of these older games from the arcade era were lost to time, especially some of the more obscure ones. If all we have is a general month or year the game was released, well, then that's just what we have to work with, and we'll fit it in somewhere. For the purposes of the web show, though, the date that we're using to fit games onto our timeline is the first release date, regardless of the platform or region it was released in. The first release date. So now that you know what Warrior's Dream is, what about the who? Who's going to be bringing you all of this? Well, when I first envisioned this web show, I wanted to cover this subject with a consistent team of co-hosts ranging in experience when it came to fighters, to gain as many different perspectives as possible. At the moment, Warrior's Dream will be a tag team affair. On point, my name is A CrowMn and I'll be your resident fighting game expert. I've been playing fighting games since I can remember. Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat titles took up a majority of my gaming time as a kid. Then, because my family got an N64, I missed out on a lot of fighting games. The Nintendo 64 was not a good console for fighters, unless you were really into War Gods and friggin' Biofreaks. After that console generation-long hiatus from fighters, I spent a lot of my high school basically playing catch-up. Owning a PlayStation 2 meant I had access to a lot of great fighters that came out on the PS1, as well as some really great Capcom and SNK compilations, and I basically never stopped playing fighting games since. While on the other end of the spectrum, my co-host Shu the Pixie, very new to the fighting game genre. She has only just recently started playing fighters, and, well, that's why I specifically wanted her to be a part of the show. So our viewers would not only hear about these games from the perspective of someone that's been playing fighting games for 20 plus years and maybe mildly obsessed with them, but also from the eyes of someone that will be playing most of these games for the very first time, someone completely new to fighters. Of course, there's always room for another co-host, maybe someone in the middle ground of fighting game experience, someone between hardcore and newbie. Who knows? Maybe. Either way, what about the format of the show? How will we be presenting this timeline to you? Episodes begin with a little Warrior's Dream introductory video, maybe a little banter between co-hosts, title card, then we introduce the subject of the episode, whatever game it happens to be. I'll provide any background, release information, sales figures, interesting facts about the game, fun stories. Then we get right into the crux of the episode. Rather than the heavily scripted style of web show I typically do with a CrowMn review, Warrior's Dream will be largely unscripted, with more of a focus on our collective experiences playing each game. Very laid back, casual, conversational, informally reviewing everything relevant to a fighting game, and we'll pretty much go on for as long as it takes us to say what we want to say. I don't really have any set minimum or max time, however long it takes. There are only really 6 main points I definitely want to make sure we spend some amount of time covering, the most important in my opinion. Graphics, music, art style, story, roster, and of course, gameplay. Then we end each episode with our final thoughts and let the credits roll. As for the way the actual show will look, it will largely be our audio over clips of whatever game we're discussing, much like what you're looking at now. Of course, what you're seeing on screen will coincide and complement whatever specific subject we're talking about, and won't be limited to just the game itself. We could splice in just about anything as needed. Shu the Pixie and I have even talked about adding in our own animated stop-motion sections with these really awesome-looking avatars of us, so that's something great to possibly look forward to as well. And with that, I think it's time to open it up to you guys. I'd like to know any suggestions you might have for this series. What kind of stuff you'd like to see. Maybe a specific way we start or end each episode, or some kind of mini-segments to help break up the show a little bit, or the style in which we review or present the games. Anything, really. Warrior's Dream is still early enough in development that we're looking for ways to make it as great as we possibly can before it actually begins. So if there's something you'd like to see in this series, by all means, shout it out. One idea I actually had was ending each episode with a brief Let's Play segment, recording a CrowMn vs. Shu match. One idea I also have is the use of special bonus episodes where we cover spin-off games and relevant movies as they appear on the timeline, but yeah, if you have an idea, let us know. Who knows? It might end up being a thing. So thanks for watching episode 0 of Warrior's Dream. You can expect this series to kick off late in the spring or early this summer, so, get friggin' hype. You can subscribe to the channel or follow a CrowMn review on your social media of choice, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, to stay updated on everything going on. And we'll see you next time, right here on A CrowMn Review.